So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. In this session, we're going to be discussing about why you should come to Canada to invest. So with me, hang on, the slides. Oh, well, we missed the first slide, but let me do the introduction. My name is Raymond Chick. A co-founder of Untether AI, headquartered in Toronto. We're a fabless semiconductor company doing AI inference chips. I also wear a different hat in the volunteer role, involved very heavily in a startup accelerator called Venture Lab. One of the mentors, they gave me a fancy name called Entrepreneur in Residence. So I'm here to talk about, obviously, why you want to invest in Canada. But before I do that, let me introduce my two guests. Austin Noronha from Sony Ventures, and Tarek, the last name is very challenging, but I'll try, Galiashvich.
Very good.
From Allstate Ventures. So Austin, you want to say something about, introduce about Sony Ventures?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm part of Sony Ventures. I'm based in Silicon Valley. Sony Ventures, if some of you may not have heard of, we actually manage 4 funds, 2 of them on Sony's balance sheet, and 2 of them are having external LPs. So given the structure that we have, we are very financially driven because we've got external LPs, and we are strategically relevant to Sony for doing it. We invest in early stage to later stage companies, write checks anywhere from $250K to $10 million. We look at areas such as entertainment, fintech, health tech, mobility. We look at areas in deep tech and the environment. Region-wise, we are pretty global. We have made investments in North America and in Israel, in Europe, in Japan, and most recently, we also launched activities in Africa and India. But we are very active. We have done 4 investments in Canada, so happy to talk about why we chose Canada and what we do in Canada.
Great, thank you. Tarek?
Yeah, so I lead Allstate Strategic Ventures. We are the corporate VC arm of Allstate Insurance Company, one of the largest P&C insurers in the US. We are very much a strategic investor, but I want to make sure whenever I have conversations to say that we are driven by financial returns as well. So we have a very strict risk-return cost of capital calculation that we need to return capital to our enterprise. We look to invest generally in the deep tech space, so we spend a lot of time looking at anything from AI and data analytics all the way to on frontier tech to quantum computing. We look at the mobility, prop tech, insurtech, fintech, and climate tech. Our check size is similar to Austin's, about $1 million on the low end, up to $10 million on the high end. And geographically, we look to invest in North America, Europe, as well as Israel. Unlike Austin, we don't actually have an investment right now in Canada, but we have a thesis that there's great opportunities in Canada, and we've been spending extensive amount of time recently looking at Canadian companies, as well as spending time with the Canadian government and the startups in Toronto area. So happy to talk about why we have the thesis, why we are looking to make more investments in Canada, and how that supports some of the Allstate's priorities and initiatives.
All right, thank you. So coming up, I'll be spending a few minutes walking you guys through a few slides that we've prepared to show you why you really want to come to Canada to invest. Okay, first of all, here I'm showing a diverse technology landscape across Canada. Most notably, you probably know about Toronto and Waterloo area, which is where I'm based at. And also nearby Ottawa and Montreal, really a semiconductor and AI tech hub, among many other things. One of the rising regions where we have a lot of technology startups that is springing off, including my own company, Untether AI. Over to the west side of the country, Vancouver is another tech hub, but most notably, probably you've heard of Vancouver being the Hollywood North, a lot of digital media happening there. Also, semiconductor companies and AIs are happening there. In the middle of the country, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, there's a lot of activities going on at the same time. Agricultural technology, food technology, and communications technology, and so forth, among other things. So I'm not going to delve too much into the details of the slides, but just to give you an overall view of the technology landscape of Canada. Now, one of the big advantages of the tech industry in Canada is that we happen to be one of the most educated country among the OECD countries. OECD is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which consists of 37 democratic countries. 60% of Canadian adults have a post-secondary education. Specifically in Toronto, where I'm at, actually is North America's #3 market for tech talent, only behind San Francisco and Seattle. If you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the slide, there are a few numbers that for you to take away. These are basically tech jobs created or added during the period of 2017 and 2021. You can see Toronto is really a big uprising job creation among ahead of San Francisco and even Seattle. Vancouver and Montreal are also doing great in terms of tech talent creation there. In terms of different sectors of technology, excellence in technology, I just talked about in the West Coast, it's the Hollywood North. A lot of digital media is happening, gaming, technology, and whatnot. That's one big industry. The Canadian government is also putting a lot of emphasis on supporting clean tech, EV batteries, those type of technologies. Quantum computing is a lot of activities going on there. A few prominent startups happening around in the Ontario area. Needless to say, we're also very prominent in AI as well as semiconductor. We've got Jeff Hinton from U of T, which is one of the godfathers of AI research. We've got Yoshua Bengio in Montreal and Richard Sutton in Alberta. So Canada is becoming a sort of AI R&D powerhouse, coupled with the recent uprising of many semiconductor companies, including my company, and there are a lot of startups going on in that discipline and industry also. In Canada, we've got a lot of government support in terms of non-dilutive funding. The first and foremost I want to talk about is SR&ED. This is a Scientific Research and Experimental Development Credit, which is from the CRA, which is a Canada Revenue Agency. I personally have taken advantage of this tax credit for the past 15 years, or even 20 years, all through my startup career. They essentially, if you spend $1 on R&D, you get anywhere cash, 30 cents to 60 cents up to, they give you back. If you are under a certain revenue threshold, you're a small enough company. So this is a great program that a lot of startups are taking advantage of to get them going. There are also many other grants programs, such as hiring grants, National Research Council, IRAP, Industry Research Assistance Program, NSERC, Idea to Innovation Grants, Lab to Market Grants, SIF is Strategic Innovation Fund, and CMF, Canada Media Fund. This is just a small sampling of what I know of. So there are many other grants that there are even companies that you can go to and pay them to navigate startups through all kinds of different government grants. In Canada, we have a very strong, diverse startup ecosystem. We have conferences, incubators, and accelerators, and a lot of them. Here I'm just showing a sampling of what's happening in Canada. Most of you probably know about Collision Conference is happening in June in Toronto, one of the biggest tech investment and startup conference, pull together people, a lot of prominent speakers there. We also have Elevate Festival, a little smaller, also in Toronto in October, and in Montreal we have Startup Fest. That's happening in July, actually. So again, this is just a sampling of what's happening in terms of conferences and people getting together at networking events. We also have a lot of countless incubators and accelerators. Again, I'm giving a few examples here. Tandem Launch is in Montreal. It's a bit of a venture lab and a seed fund kind of organization. In fact, I think Sony Venture has invested in some Tandem Launch companies. We have a Creative Destruction Lab, which has a lot of locations around Canada and also US. Foresight Canada is another accelerator focused on clean tech and green technology. Communitech is in Waterloo, Mars in Toronto, and lastly, another example is what I'm very involved with is Venture Lab. So because I am actually here on behalf of Venture Lab mostly, so I'm putting in a slide to talk a bit more about what we do at Venture Lab. There are a lot of programs well, first of all, it's a nonprofit, and these programs are free for startups that are admitted to one of these programs. I'm giving you a few examples here among many. Capital Investment Program is we have advisors on board to help startups to be investment ready, help the founders to clean up their pitches and coach on them and help them to create due diligence, data rooms and whatnot. Accelerate AI, obviously, by the name, it's for AI companies, AI startups that uses AI to enhance their product offerings. The most recently, we have a Hardware Catalyst Initiative, which is mostly for hardware and semiconductor startups. If you're in this program, you get free access to a $10 million lab, which was oscilloscopes, high-frequency generators, and if you're in the electronics hardware world, it's a huge advantage. It also has, for MedTech, also has a MedTech lab, also free. And also, if you are in the semiconductor silicon, if you're in this program, you also get access to free design tools. So it's hugely popular and advantageous for silicon companies to get into that program. And lastly, we have recently created a HeartTech Investor Network, which is a network of investors that we pull together, including angel investors like myself, corporate VCs, private equity, and family offices, and all kinds of different investors that we pull together who are interested in investing in hardware or semiconductor-based companies. And with a Venture Lab network, we have a ton of advisors and mentors like myself to help investors to understand the technology side of things. And that's Venture Lab. Right. Here is a slide of what we know about who, in terms of the CVCs, have investments in Canada already. Prime example, Sony. You already invested in a few companies in Canada.
4 of them,
And for myself, from Untether AI, I've received investment from GM Ventures and Intel Capital too. So these are just a sampling of what the CVC has invested in Canada. So this slide shows a sampling of prominent Canadian startups. 3 categories, really. Some startups who are already successfully exited through IPO and are publicly listed include Alphawave Semiconductor, a semiconductor company in Toronto. AppCellera, it's a biotech company. Nuvve is a payment technology company. So they're all public, successful returns. there are also examples of large acquisitions. For example, Wattpad is acquired by Webtoon, it's a Korean company, for I think $600 million. Qualcomm acquired Nuvia, which is a semiconductor company, a computer chip company, a couple of years ago for $1.2 billion. GaN Systems, which is a power semiconductor company, which they've been acquired by Infineon just a couple of years ago for to the tune of $800 million or so. So these are all examples of successful exits too. And the other category is we also have a lot of unicorns in flight, basically. Examples are ADA, bench-size AI companies. Cohere is our own, Canada's own large language model, foundation model company. And last but not least, Xanadu is a quantum computing company using photonics. So good examples all. And lastly, here I'm showing a list of different Canadian startups which actually are here in GCVI. So some of those you might have seen doing introductions in some morning sessions. So I'm not going to go through all, but I encourage you to take a picture and so that you know who to talk to after these sessions. I think they are around here, and including myself. If you're interested in talking to Antetheria, I'm here. And this is my last slide, basically wrapping up what I've mentioned. The talent, the sectors of excellence, non-dilutive funding, and we have a strong ecosystem. And Angus, you want to add?
So, you know, for Sony, we look at, well, one of the areas we're looking at is deep tech, and we're always interested in technology that is having some good roots. So the 4 companies that we have invested in, actually all of them are spun out of universities. So the talent is good. We love the SHRED program, which is where the startups get money from the government. It's all non-dilutive. And with the exchange rate between the US and Canada, the valuations are pretty reasonable.
Right. You have 30% discount?
The captive, it's a captive market. The talent tends to stay there. They don't tend to move around companies. They tend to be there. So the hubs around the universities, so we invested in 4 companies. One is Lander. Lander's in Montreal. It's actually spun out of this incubator called Tandem Launch. Amazing incubator. They have EIRs there. They take technologies from universities. So what the Lander is doing is basically using AI as a music platform. And that is great because we have a focus area for entertainment for Sony with Sony Music. The second company we invested in is AtHoc. It's spun out of the University of Waterloo. And there it is basically the next generation eye tracking and human-computer interface. Again, Intel Capital was with us, Samsung was with us, and I think even HP Tech Ventures was with us. So we are collaborating with a few CVCs in that particular one. The third one is OnCoustics, who's in town here. And that's, again, using AI. It was also spun out of, had association with the University of Toronto. And it is basically using AI ML for medical diagnostics, non-invasive medical diagnostics. And the CEO is in the space here. And the last one is actually a company we have not announced. I can just leave it as it's somewhere in the privacy, cyber security space. It's also associated with University of Toronto. And it's an early stage company. And there are some other CVCs like M12 that have invested along with us. So given the talent, given the government support, given reasonable valuations, we continue to be very bullish about Canada. The other last thing that I would put is the consulate is very good in kind of matching us up with the companies in Canada so we don't have to run around all different parts. But we'll continue to look at Canada. So we're hoping one of those 4 is a big hit. So.
Thank you. Tarek?
Yeah, I feel Austin has done such a great job describing all the reasons why to invest in Canada. It's very similar for us. I mean, the talent is great. The quality of the companies that we talk is great. The areas that you mentioned that, you know, are of interest to Allstate, AI, ML, you know, quantum computing, a few others. There's tons of great talent. And like the one thing that we like from the Allstate side, we have a really good ecosystem in Chicago and robust ecosystem, but then you also get access to Toronto, which is 1 hour flight from Chicago. So for us, it's very easy access. and easy to engage with those companies, manage it, and bring to ideally to help them come to US. Because the way we think about our value prop, it's not just about capital that we invest, but it's also how some of those companies that start in Canada that have good solutions, how do we actually help them think about to some additional use cases in US, and then help them come to US in a way that they're going to grow significantly higher than the valuation that we would pay for them by investing in Canada.
That is an important point to note, actually. So we have also invested in companies which are in US, but they have R&D centers somewhere else. Mm-hmm. That's a good model. Actually, on Acoustics, talking to the CEO, she's based here because the US is the big market. Yep. And she's based here. She's got the connections with the hospitals, everything. The R&D is in Canada, taking all the advantage of your SHRED program and everything else. That's a good combination if you have, or you work with CVCs where we help these portfolio companies connect with the US other corporations, and including, of course, Sony. So a combination of getting the best of Canada through the talent, kind of captive talent, I should say. They don't tend to move around even from cities to cities. They tend to stay there. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is the ecosystem of the support from the government is it's very interesting to go invest in those particular areas. Yeah.
Great. I think we are out of time, but in closing, I'd like to thank Angus and Tarek for joining me in this discussion, very stimulating discussion. And do look for me, Raymond Chick, on LinkedIn if you want to get more information out of why you want to invest in Canada and want a connection to use me as a conduit into Canada. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.